SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stone Go, Gary 5, Yahola Jifkidos, Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedgedawedsk. Welcome to another portion, another episode of Mvskoke Radio. And we've got a couple things we'll be sharing with you today. First of all, October is Domestic Violence Month. And to discuss the topic, we have our own Sean Partridge back in studio once again.
Good morning.
And then on the phone, let's see, maybe we got this correct. Cece, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Cece Hoey with the Strong Heart organization. Now, what's your title there?
I'm the communications manager at Strongheart.
Okay, we've got the right folks. First of all, it is Domestic Violence Month nationally, and of course we want to share these two perspectives today. First of all, Cece, let's start with you. What is Strongheart doing to observe the month?
So each year we honor our Native American advocates out there in the field doing the work. We center survivors' stories, and we try to raise up awareness of domestic violence through our social media, our radio presence, of course. Thank you, Gary, for having us on. And just, trying to bring awareness to the general public about this issue.
Okay, Sean, locally, what is the Mvskoke Nation doing here?
Sure. Thank you, Gary, again for having me, Mado. As you know, we always try to do a variety of activities to bring awareness to domestic violence, and so we've got a lot of great events coming up this month. Our big event at the end of the month will be a community awareness scavenger hunt on October 28th out at the Claude Cox Omniplex. We want people, citizens, the public to come out, join us on a hunt to learn more about domestic violence and how we can increase safety on our reservation. We'll have several activities there, and with completion, participants will be able to earn a hoodie while supplies last, so we're really excited about that. We'll also be recognizing Purple Thursday on October 21st, where we're encouraging people across the reservation and really, I think, nationally to wear purple to show support for survivors, help start a conversation about domestic violence, and also to, I think, kind of let people know that you are a safe person that someone can talk to if they have questions or just engage in discussion about domestic violence. And so also, for the next 3 Thursdays, starting tomorrow, out at the walking trail behind Light Horse Police, we will have a walking labyrinth set up, as well as a table with information and goodies. We know we have lots of employees at the complex that get out and walk. The weather lately has been beautiful, so we invite people to come down and just, for some self-care time and to get some information about healthy relationships and just enjoy the outdoors as well. We're encouraging people across the reservation to help us paint it purple. So if that is changing your light bulb on your porch to a purple bulb, putting a purple ribbon up, decorating your windows, doors, whatever you can do, again, just to help bring attention to October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
I'm not sure I've seen too many purple light bulbs, but I think we can probably find
those.
Cece, let me start here with the main question I always ask, and Sean, think about this one also. How are we doing? Are there any numbers, anything that kind of gives us an idea of the size of this particular tragic problem?
Yeah, Thanks for asking. It is a huge issue. The last study that was done was actually in 2010, and then the research was published in 2016 through the National Institute of Justice. So those are the most recent statistics that we have. And some of those statistics show that 4 in 5 Native Americans have experienced violence in their lifetime. It also showed that 1 in 2 Native women, about 55%, and 1 in 3 Native men, about 43%, have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And for Native victims of physical intimate partner violence, stalking, and sexual violence, 2 in 5 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men were unable to get the services they needed. So compared to their white counterparts, Native women and men are 5 times as likely to have experienced physical violence by a non-Native intimate partner. And so some of those stats, like I said, come from the National Institute of Justice research project that came out several years ago. Another statistic that is frequently cited is from the Centers for Disease Control, and that one of those studies claimed that homicide is a leading cause of death for Native women. So it's a very, very serious issue that, is underscored by these statistics. There is, in all of those statistics, I just want to make sure that people know there is hope, there is help. That is why Strong First Native Helpline exists, is to help our Native American relatives who are hurting in their relationships. So we started about 5 years ago, and we've been, expanding our operations and really helping our relatives out there.
Okay, Sean, do those numbers translate into something that we can look at here locally? How are we doing?
Sure, absolutely. Well, and I think all of us, in our families, our communities, we know this despite what the data says. I think just our experiences here on the reservation, we know that this is an issue for us. And it was prior to the ruling. I think since the Supreme Court ruling on July 9th of 2020, we are able to have a better picture of the magnitude of the problem. And I want to be very clear that because of the ruling, there's no data to suggest that all of a sudden crime got worse. But since the ruling, we have our own Light Horse police who are now more often responding, are the first responders to these types of crimes. And so thankfully, the years of collaboration that we have with Light Horse, we have great protocols and processes in place. Our Light Horse officers are responding to crimes of domestic violence, other victimizations, and they are reaching out and putting victims and survivors in touch on the spot with advocates. And so that process has led to significant increases in the people that we're interacting with and serving. And so generally we have served anywhere from 350 to 400 victims and survivors a year, victims and survivors of a variety of crimes. And so far we've served about 451 this calendar year. And so about 72% of those, again, I just pulled some quick data this morning before coming. About 72% of those are DV related. We have about 24% of those 451 that we've served thus far this year who are reporting having suffered strangulation, which is very concerning. Strangulation is one of the, deadliest behaviors, actions that can occur within a violent relationship. And so about 60% of those people that we've served so far this year are indigenous, and so are citizens and citizens of other nations, and so we are staying very, very busy. And so we're seeing the impacts not only through our program, our law enforcement who are responding, our healthcare system is treating victims and survivors who've suffered injuries. We have, families who are engaged with our child welfare system as a result of domestic violence. We have increases in numbers, of cases that are coming through tribal court. So we're seeing the impacts really all throughout our government, our services, and just again through our communities and across the reservation.
Let me toss this one out to the two of you. We've seen a lot more attention focused on this subject in the last year or so. National news organizations and law enforcement have been paying more attention to this. It's like, in some cases, something that's brand new to them, and they're breaking news and this kind of thing. But this is a topic that we've dealt with for decades already. I mean, Native people have already known about this and have raised their voices. Now, locally, I mean, not locally, but across our nation, we've seen, as I say, many news agencies begin to focus on this like it's something brand new. Do either of you have an idea or a feeling about the benefits, possibly, of this new attention that's being placed on this subject?
Well, Gary, I can just, a little something to add to that. I think, historically, I mean, domestic violence has been one of those things that people don't want to talk about. There's a lot of shame, embarrassment, that goes along for survivors in sharing about their experience and, what they're dealing with. There's a great deal of fear in doing that. And so there's a lot of reasons. Again, society has not always been supportive or recognizing that domestic violence is not okay. Our society in many ways has perpetuated and continues to perpetuate violence. And so I really credit our survivors in being willing, to share their experiences, to reach out for support and assistance. Definitely the work of our tribal advocates working in our communities, our tribal leadership, being open and willing to have these discussions and recognize, acknowledge that domestic violence is not something that is supported by our traditional values and culture, yet it is so prevalent. And so I definitely credit, the survivors, sharing their stories, and it just takes so much courage to do that. I think we've seen that not only at home here in our own communities on our reservation, but also nationally as well. And then certainly the support that they receive from advocacy, from leaders, from just their family, community members, to help carry forth those messages, to inspire all of us to create change, very, very critical change that we need.
Cece, what are your thoughts on this national attention being paid to the subject?
Yeah, Sean actually encapsulated it beautifully. I would just piggyback on that a little bit and say, the domination and subjugation of Native Americans began with colonization, right? And it continues through today. And, it looks a little bit different now than it did, 400, 500 years ago. But it's still the same idea. And I think, Sean touched on that a little bit. So I think the benefits of this new attention are good. And I hedge a little bit here in that I'm a little cautious in, how do I say this? I'm a little cautious because we don't want to further victimize our people, and we don't want to tokenize our people, and we don't want to further perpetuate stereotypes that are out there. And so I'm a little cautious of the new attention. I think that there is a good way to do it, and I have seen a lot of good work from our Native partners and sister organizations, and I've seen a lot of good attention from our allies. But I just, there's a sensitive way to handle such a tough subject, and I think that I heard that from Sean as well.
Okay. We're going to take a short pause here, and then we'll be returning with more of our discussion on domestic violence in our Native communities. Please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Hello everyone, I'm Angela King with the Stroke Prevention Program. With the support of the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board and Mvskoke Nation, we want to help Native Americans in our community lower their risk for stroke and heart disease. 80% of strokes are preventable just by reducing health-related risk factors. If you are interested in how to reduce your risks, please contact me at 539-299-1530. Again, that number is 539-299-1530.
Okay, we're back here on Mvskoke Radio. Our topic today for the first segment is domestic violence. Again, let me toss that question out to two of you, and perhaps we'll start with Cece this time. What has been perhaps the greatest tool, implement, weapon that we have in dealing with this issue? What's been the best, most effective?
Well, I think that education, right? I would say more and more people are becoming educated on the issues of domestic violence, what domestic violence looks like, that it's maybe not just physical, that there are many other aspects to domestic violence. So general education, and I also think people are really believing survivors. And survivors are coming forward to tell and share their stories more than ever before. And I think that has a lot to do with the services that Strong Hearts offers and that Sean's program offers too. And so I think that through education, we've created more support networks and things of that nature. That's what I would say. People are becoming more enlightened on these issues and want to help, and survivors want to come forward.
Okay, Sean, what are your thoughts there? What's been the most effective?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Stacy that education is key. I think for us at Mvskoke Nation, something that has and continues to dramatically change kind of the dynamic for us is our development of collaborative responses. It's not, our program, Family Violence, is there, but we're also working collaboratively with our tribal law enforcement, with Light Horse Police. We are working alongside with our Office of Attorney General, with our court, with our nurses via our SANE program, and then also with other programs as well, because we can't this isn't just an issue for family violence and our advocates to respond to. We need all of us, as professionals that are interacting with victims and survivors, but who also have responsibilities to hold offenders accountable. We need all of us working together to ensure that we have the most respectful, trauma-informed, and effective responses possible. And that requires all of us working together to make those changes to ensure that victims and survivors are supported, that they feel comfortable reaching out, that that we can assist them and support them in addressing their safety issues and concerns, and also that our justice system is effective at holding offenders accountable. And we all, as a nation, we have a tremendous responsibility to ensuring public safety across the reservation. And so certainly our collaborative responses is key to being able to do that.
The attention being paid to the subject has taken several forms, some good, not others need improvement. And we've talked about education being the best, let's call it a tool to deal with this problem. Now, with all of this having been put out there for a number of years, at least from our end of it, what would either of you say is the most encouraging sign of change, of being effective, doing something to eliminate the problem? Sean, let's start with you this time.
Sure. Well, we know as Muskogee people, the Supreme Court ruling was, historic for us in so many different ways. I think, no doubt. We have, and I think our nation recognizes, the tremendous responsibility that we have. And so in addressing crime on our reservation and ensuring that our communities and our people are safe. And so, what I find that so encouraging because, this change, significant historic change in the jurisdictional landscape for us here means that our people are responding to our people. And so there's just, to me, that presents so many opportunities for us to create responses that we feel like are, going to best meet the needs of our people. And that's really exciting. We know it's a tremendous amount of work and responsibility that we have, but there's so much opportunity there as well. And so we're able to build, a justice system that is representative of us and the needs of our people. And so that is just really, it's an exciting time.
Cece, what are your thoughts there? What's the most encouraging thing that you are aware of?
Yeah, again, Sean just really hit the nail on the head there. I don't know that there's much that I can add, but I'll just go back to, what our organization has done and what we're hearing. So, since 2017, we've handled over, 19,000 different calls, texts, and chats. And so those are people who are feeling empowered and wanting to reach out for help. And so, we hear, at the end of our contact, we're hearing, thank you. This really, you've listened to me in a way that no other, organization can. It really means a lot to me to have a Native organization. You understand what I'm going through. And so I think that signs of good would be, that we've expanded our operations so that we can assist all Native Americans, no matter what time zone or preferred method of contact that they have. So we see our organization making an impact in advocacy services.
Okay, this next question is pretty well attached to the last one I just asked. If you could capsulize what you've seen and describe it in a short phrase, how would the both of you measure the progress? Sean?
Oh, wow, Gary, that's a big question there.
It's supposed to be
Yeah.
it's supposed to be a little one.
Oh, was it? Well, so I mean, here's what I can say is that family violence, our advocates are working their tails off. To respond, to be available, to provide support, advocacy, and help address victims and survivors, the needs that they have. Really excited. I mean, our program, again, worked our tails off since March, and just over the last month, we've been awarded $7.9 million. That's via 5 different grants. And I mean, were so many times we were ready to pull our hair out because in trying to write grants and trying to meet these increased needs, I mean, it was a lot, and I think for many of us, it was about to push some of us maybe to early retirement, but clearly, to be awarded almost $8 million in grants to help us build, and strengthen our capacity to meet these needs is something we're really proud of. And so what I want citizens to know is that we're on the brink of a very quick expansion. And so additional staff, increased services. And so that's something we're really excited about. We appreciate, leadership support in helping us to do that.
Okay, Cece, it's your turn for the little questionnaire. How would you measure the progress?
So my answer might be a little bit more short than Sean's, but we say it here. Wouldn't it be great if we all worked ourselves out of a job? That would be the ultimate sign of success, right? Because we would have solved domestic violence, and we wouldn't need to have these types of services anymore. Do I think that is going to happen anytime soon? No, but you know what? That's still the goal that we're working towards.
Okay, in the last couple of minutes here, if any of our listeners were interested in talking with you or perhaps connecting with the services, how is Strongheart to be reached?
So Strongheart is 24/7, 365. We are available by calling and texting 1-844-7-NATIVE. And we also have an online chat service through our website at strongheartshelpline.org.
Wonderful. Sean, how would people reach you?
Sure. So at Family Violence, our main program line rolls over, is answered 24/7. That number is 918-732-7979. Advocates are available. They do, throughout the day or after hours, safety planning, provide whatever type of assistance a victim or survivor needs. We coordinate sexual assault and domestic violence exams in coordination with our nurses from our Department of Health. So just a variety of services. Feel free to call at any time, and we look forward to hearing and supporting our people.
A wonderful. Big Mado to Sean Partridge with our own family program here at the Mvskoke Nation, and with Cece Hovey with the Strongheart program, a national organization designed to lend its help. I want to thank you again, and of course we'll be happy to talk with you as the topic moves along, shall we say. Progressing, I'm not quite sure there, but as it gets better, we'll be watching it. So thank you to the both of you.
Mado, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Sean.
All right, we're going to take another short pause here, and then we'll be back. We're going to hear some music from Ben Yahola in the Mvskoke language, and his thoughts on how he got to a spot where he gets to play before people and share his material. Stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio, here on 1240 The Brew.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am, and meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Ben Yahola is a figure that's been around Mvskoke country for quite a long time. And many folks are familiar with his command of the language, in his sharing it in his music. Ben sat down with our video producer, Jared Moore, and talked about his music and shared some of it there. And thank you, Jared, for lending us this piece. So let's listen to what happened there.
Okay. Oklahoma, Igana, I'm in Legida, Wonders, Nita Jaksho, Sinete, Totkan, Ayaji, Hiroishi, Nigi, Poma Biti, Igana, Mopto, Vijik, Haji. Well, the sun is shining, moon is rising, Juligi Abaskagi. Mvskoke land, that's where I belong, on a Saturday night in the light of fire. Against the mother trees, moving with the leaves, shadows of us dancing, singing truth to power, love in the final hour. We listen and we sing, faith in the natural world, so simple and pure. Let me stay here around this fire with you. Well, the sun is rising, moon is shining, Juligi Abaskagi. Pumayedana de gosto zidan yamana lagat chimeye chiga moes totkan chi hosachi pohya geta hagibi hajiti go up kibi haji ayagido. Well, the sun is rising, moon is shining, Juligi Abaskagi. Magida kajok sinchi geta moment magida yomusi makero one biggest kapachari taman out the chogar she lakis daman with anta shosa shaglatka kolawa taman out the chogar pohagi zonga katsa bacon it no rasto jaga nage sto it no madi handa jagge jagadakni tira de bad nage no no madi Juligi Abaskagi. Where the sun is rising, moon is shining, Juligi Abaskagi. Things about my life and the work I've done is just came natural because, you know, we basically grew up in a society where we always have to begin to as a child, established that we're different already. And because I did not speak English. And my mother or father didn't either. And so we were in a society that Togobachi, over there in that area. That's where I grew up, over there in Hughes County, north of Holdenville. And it was a place to where I had no fear. Growing, playing in the woods and, of all the things that are there today, but we never feared anything. And I don't remember anybody getting snake bit or, spiders getting them. I mean, we'd step on catfish every now and then in the creek while we're out there and, getting them by our hands, but nothing real serious. Until I went to school. And that's where I was taught fear, shame, guilt, like every day. And so I went through that period, in fear and praying every night, don't take me, don't take mine. I think it was pretty harsh treatment, the brainwashing, basically, what I went through. But when I left there, I went back to the country, and I was afraid, but then eventually that fear went away again because, I was back home and around my usual surroundings. But over the years, we began to have an attitude of, I guess, wanting freedom and being able to express ourselves and freely. And for me, as a child going to boarding school, this first thing in line was, get your hair cut, and so they shaved us. They asked me what kind of haircut you want, So I was telling them in the language, just kind of showing them here, leave that there, that kind of thing. But so. It's entertaining for people because I'm just a little child who don't speak English, and so they would call people in, others in there, and they'd laugh at what I said. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm in a strange world. But so the haircut starts and everything starts getting cut off, and the tears start to fall, and how. So went through that whole period, and of course get outside and everybody's kind of laughing, and so it kind of goes away right away. But but the trauma was ingrained. That's why I remember it, and hoping that my children would never go through that. They haven't, but others that had experienced that, I think it made some of us resistant to the system, and that's kind of the way I grew up. And the way I resisted was whenever a teacher would tell me something in my mind, they weren't going to get in my mind, they couldn't, and I would interpret it in my language first. And I was a little slower at my response, but I had two languages that I'm working with all my life. And some things did not make sense as to the way they would sound in English. I mean, in Mvskoke from English. And so I eventually, over time, I think by the time I was in the 12th grade, actually I graduated as 11th grader, but last year is when I realized that because I was critically analyzing issues in my research, I'm beginning to lose that Stijati analytical process. And then it bothered me so much. I'm like, oh gosh, I jumped up and it's like, they got to me. They got to me now. And so I went on like a 3-day journey of, not eating and drink water and sort of come to the conclusion eventually that, I just have to be who I am. And so that was my journey to begin to express myself as me, and nobody else. And so Kulgi hayagi ahogi human Isa witskatan megati hoshats Agalashwan hayaya gogiashi lubejita Migo zabetin waje magat Ujat the shijiratu wachat Ogidan yamaki Gotiashi lobejeta Hogi haladet Matu magit Hotko bigot lakshi got mokana Wena jom Gira no siashi lobejeta In a bed after west Tosko me got tent up conscience wegit hayo me doket hidden zabak got diaski lopeteta Isti and walk its go ano gets ka emoji Isti sto as and walk got hidden zabak Yaski lobejeta Ahogi haladet Majo magit hotko bigot lakshi got mokana Wena jom gedano yaski lobejeta Abuitska, Wojitska, Chijokado, Kotko be good. Money Chigot can win a jump, get a no Chiaski, Lubejeta. Hey, yet hago naksamba hombebas. Kaza pichka asliji tachichka na wita. Miski haji hachi aski lubejeta. Hijagida hanogiji tosko megot. Histimanejit owatas. Moment nagen iaski lobejeta. And then, by the time I graduated, Wounded Knee happened, and 73. And of course, and then not long after I got into college, the Seminole Treaty people had any issues over there, so I went with my friends, and so we got involved and got sort of pulled into a lot of these court cases, but I still maintain my attitude towards sovereignty. I was part of the group, I believe, was remnants of the Ichki Oshta, means Four Mothers Society, and all south of over there, Hannah. We used to meet at the Liberty School, and I'd listen to the elders talk about it. I was only 16 then, but I liked what I heard, but after I graduated from school, the meetings were starting to not happen as much because they were dying. And so that was about the last time I went to one of their meetings, but they always talked about, our sovereignty. We are the people. We are the Idalwa, all the Idalwa Algi, the tribal towns. Still, we know that we all each belong to, and they may not have a fire, but they're still the Idalwa that in our hearts they will always be. And so the people that were meeting there had mostly we could say that they were Idalwa Jogoslako people from the big house. And the ceremonial people, we call them. And big house, Jogoslako, the lodge. Other parts of the country, they'd say your lodge. We got lodges here, ceremonial lodges. So Jogoslako, it was one of the biggest. I mean, it was probably the only ones that were represented the people from Jogoslako, and then so it sort of fit in with the American Indian movement's activities and expression of, solidarity and red power. And so after that period kind of winded down, as the treaty people issue started coming up, and so I've sort of always just kind of been in the background helping out with doing graphics or whatever it took and staying out of the picture. Hopefully I would, but I was always in it somehow. And I decided to just kind of stick with my music, because when I was like 10 years old, my brother had a guitar and he played it, and when he was gone, that was my time. So when I was 10, that's when I started playing that thing and started playing songs, eventually. Perhaps it's just something that just comes natural to some people. And because my son, he's one that I tried to teach him to read notes and where to find it on piano, guitar, whatever, and he was always frustrated. But when I was in New Mexico, I heard somebody playing the piano really nice. I looked in there, it was him, and so he knew he could do it just naturally, and any instrument, just pick up and just play it. I'm like, gosh, wish I could do that. But he can't read a lick of note. He just don't. He can't do that. So it must have been natural, but so for me, all these years, there was a time when my great uncle, I come back from school and I had my guitar, and he said, what is that? No, he knew what it was. Well, I was just telling him. He asked me to play it for him, so I played something, and he went, nah. He didn't like it. And that kind of just sunk my heart. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't have support. So I put it away for about 3 years. Then one day I was walking down the road and went under a bridge, and there was an old guitar there. I picked it up. It was all busted in, but still could hold strings. So I strung it up, and that's when I went back into it again. So all these years must be, I guess, a good at least 57 years empty. Hashite ajok hayayaki Odira madoke Ego zabed mit kanchayade Stovidan shoge no dedo Hage kirate de dos moesan guslebe godo Nakita gigasa sapa de moes netta hochinli da bogi bades Yahi jage adigat Ishtin me gozabesh kan magagigas boga boya shigo hobitagi apatske polades nita nita alagate nita nita alagate. Sometimes I lay under the moon, I thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. 'Cause when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. Because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. Ooh. It's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when the beat on the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving, the waters stay raging. In this maze you may lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it phase you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. Because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. Ooh. One day this all will change, treat people the same, stop all the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom. Why-yo, why-yo, why-yo. I signed up for the draft as an objector. You know, it was my duty to say that I didn't like the war, because hey, but if I go there, hey, I'm going to shoot back. Yeah, I would, but just for myself, and probably my friends or whoever, comrades. Anyway, that's being like, that's part of my first act of political, I guess, some activity related to foreign wars. But Wounded Knee had happened, and so listening to about all the rights that we have, and treaty rights violated, and so it makes a young man resentful of the authority. So we always questioned as best we could. But a lot of times it was through action that, you know, we just didn't want to participate in the mainstream way of life. And so ceremonial life was our sovereign way of living. And the things about, you know, the movement, then I went because I really I was into the movement, so I went to Minneapolis and lived there for a while, closer to the founders of the movement. Participated there in a lot of encampments and began to help them out. But there were times, because I could talk the language, they always called on me to pray, and it wasn't I didn't know how to pray, except just to ask the ancestors, and, you know, just talk about, you know, the power of nature, life, and all this, and mainly because I can touch that life. And talking about the spirit, it's like, well, I didn't know, eventually, I began to feel in my heart that the Spirit is there, and ultimately it began to coalesce into strengthening my I say mind, body, and spirit as I'm growing into a social consciousness as Ishtijadi. And I think comes a time where we realize that we've reached a level when we stepped out of that box of that group thinking that we have to talk like everybody else, but anymore. Then we come to realize that I'm going to be me and beginning to listen to everybody and respect everybody, and that's where I believe that level of spiritual consciousness is beginning to settle in, and so listening to everything that's all around you, and like when I'm at a place sometimes that you feel a cool pocket of cold air. It's like, wow, this is different. And say thank you, because it feels good. And other indigenous people I've come across with in ceremonies that say, that's when their understanding is the Spirit is there when they're in prayer. And then you feel a breeze kind of coming around you like that, and then it's like they just came and acknowledged and took your words. And your words, it's like, they always said ceremonial grounds. We don't need a huge audience. All we need is love, faith, humility, and obedience. When you make an announcement, the wind will take it, and you have excited the molecules that are connected universally, and then the wind takes it.
Here's one I've always wanted to share with the tribe, the people, Mvskoke Creek Nations. He's one of our own. Wrote this back in the early 1800s. James Gregory Roan wrote a poem, and I found it, and I really liked it. And it's called The Green Corn Dance. Let me see if I can remember it. My children are happy until this day. The ashes of the fire are blown away. The path so long led from the blue sea. Southern winds came blowing the new corn. Warm sun counsel with the great dark cloud. Dimple Heidi sends the lightning reborn. With a lightning fire we dancing and loud. Children of the corn, rejoice this day. The ashes of the fire are blown away. The rain come up from the blue sea. Dimple comes with the children in his light and fire. We dance, singing loud. E-I-O, E-I-O, it's just a really finite thing. It's just so close. The power is there. And this is the way I begin to feel, and I respect life in general, because everything is so right there. This food is all around us in the forest here, and we just need to know where to go. And we're losing that because of our, I guess, Eurocentric mindset now. But that level of consciousness, I believe, is when we begin to settle in. And I think through that, I began to see that music, if I take my thoughts into music and just use that level to, or that medium to send my message in. You know, that song I sang once about that interpreted song, One Love. You know, it's about war and, you know, not living together and forever fighting. You know, but one day, neta, stofast, you know, someday we will all be just one, and our children will be able to play like that. It's those kinds of messages that I like to create in my lines, and things, of course, related to from our perception of reality and how we look at these things, and try to, if it makes me feel good, I'm just hoping that it makes somebody else feel that same energy. So that's basically kind of like in a nutshell for my songs, and I participate in a lot of these activities, climate change marches, and you know, of course anti-pipelines and mascots, everything that you see. I've been out there, and I always want to just sit and let others take the lead on these things, but sometimes because I've got the mic, it's like nobody wants to come up, and I end up like, okay, well, somebody come up. But in the meantime, I want to say something. So then it goes into that, but it's just something that I'm always hoping that young leadership would step up and express themselves. And when I first started playing music, I was in the cities, and I would get butterflies. I'd be so sick after, but I needed to break that. I needed to get used to just being out there in public, because you know, I had something to say, and it was just burning. So anymore, I'd go on the street corners and, you know, just start playing. And I had big plans just before the COVID to do something in Tulsa, but I never got around to it. And so that's why I carry my stuff around. Now it's just always for protest. People call me, and sometimes I can make it, but most time it's just, you know, it takes a lot of sacrifice and my time and energy, and I kind of like expressing myself against the authorities, and then helping families that have gone through some hard times, and they just want somebody to care, and so I'm always willing to make some time.
I'll let get chegado man Jese jana gadi Alwi isti kanjabi tamge Jindat pa bashte Madan taka zayangi Jin hilagen hardware Ibet ke kanjabi Neta without odor. Tam gita this. Este halwi kanjabi tam git. Jawegibas jiaja Midges Gentahoshigo Ishte Hawi Kanjabi Tamge Tamgas Papnimai Hijis Kodayen with a skin, she just walk it, she go. Jawe gibas jiaja, mije jao she go. Ishte hawi kanjabi tamge. Jawe gibas jiaja Mije jao shigo Ishte hawi kanjabi tamge. You know, I mean, we'd hear something on the radio, and then because my siblings, we all talk to each other, never using English. And we'd hear that song, and then we'd talk about what it's saying, and say, and try to mimic what they said in that song. And so it was just kind of slow grooming, you know, that process. But anymore, it got to be, to me, it became a challenge to match the English lyrics with Mvskoke with the same rhythmic pattern, the amount of syllables, and so I could create something, but then I had to break it down, and then so to refine it, and then or change the whole way of saying it to match it. One song that in Christmas time, I know that I was trying to interpret as much as I can that were not, and one of it is Feliz La Vida.
Oh, yeah.
So I did that one. Avachki adeba, avachki adeba. So that's one of the things that that one I liked. And I've recorded with the Seminole Tribe of Florida just one song for their school. I created a song for their school, and so they were playing it every 2 hours or so, and it's like a 90-second song. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the main things I really like is just doing these little short ones. And I always clung close to being the people from the heart of the trees. That's Mvskoke. That's what they say. And then, but I've heard others say that we are, there's a word that says we are people from the heart of the tree. That's who Mvskoke people are. And so that the years of migrations of our people and who we really are, I really never felt comfortable saying I'm Mvskoke. I mean, because maybe people from the South, global South, and in the north because my father's part comes from the Shawnee group, the Togobachi, and so that's why I always say, I'm an intertribal kind of guy, but only right now I'm a full-blood Creek. Yanita Hayomi, Igan Hayit Hagidayiba. At this time of climate change, Inokiradesh, Lakimahina, in the COVID that is going on. And as we are doing our best to survive this, and it's the children that of the future will get beyond this particular period, but the earth is not going to stop. It's going to keep evolving. And so it's those jindagi, you children, that I'm thinking about, these things. That when I do today, I want to do my best to think of the children as far as 150 years from now. Ishti hijakshigo, the future generations. That's one of the things that I hope that the nation today can do something for them tomorrow. And that's the seventh generation, 150 years from today. Shigeja Gesha, that's what I say to you all.
One day this all will change, treat people the same, stop all the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom. Why-yo, why-yo, why-yo.
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.